It's Friday, and I'm back with the next in our Fanzine Friday series. Today we're taking a look at the new Beholder, number 29. Please stick around. I'm AZ Mountaineer. This is our channel, Old School Rules, where we celebrate the community of old school gamers and grognards who like classic RPGs, miniatures, magazines, and everything that goes with it. Each week on the Fanzine Friday series, I take a fanzine from my collection off the shelf for a closer look. And today, from December of 1981, this is the Beholder, number 29. Hope you enjoy the video. Over the past several months, we've taken a look at a couple of different fanzines. The first one was called The Beholder. It was the product of Mike Stoner and Guy Duke. And the second one was called The Aerial Servant. Those fanzines were combined by Nicholas Scales, who had a company called Scale Design. And he put out 4 issues of what he called the new Beholder. This is the 4th and final issue. It's number 29. He kept using the Beholder's name and continued with their numbering. Mike and Guy went through issues 25, and so then Scale Designs 26, 27, 28, and finally 29. These fanzines for the new Beholder is magazine size, slightly longer than the magazines we have here in the U.S. And it's got this black sort of tape down the side, which seems to have held up pretty well over time. And this one has a color cover, so let's take a look at that art here. As it says on the cover, this is going to have the special Christmas issue, which is, if you're paying attention, behind. It should have come out several weeks earlier, but this one, which is the final one, as we often see, right, when a fanzine is going to fold, one of the first things that happens is they begin to miss their publication deadlines. Again, Christmas issue, AD&D scenario, Traveler scenario, as well as some number of other things. This cover is done by Richard Shinfield, and it's sort of a fantastical Salvador Dali-esque kind of thing here. We got a castle in the background. This guy looks like, I think he's rowing something. He's got a goat with him. There's a skeleton with a mouse for a head and a frog. I don't know what's going on here. It's just kind of, maybe it's fantastical, right? Here's what's inside. We have the credit, editorial, Santa's Fairly Grotto, which is a tongue-in-cheek Christmas-themed adventure, the Preacher's Pulpit, the Armorer's Guild, Anthern, which is a Traveler article, the Inheritance, which is the Traveler scenario, Maryland's Pantry, that's new magic items, Monster Competition being announced, the Electric Zygote, which is information about play-by-mail, review, and other things like that, and then Monster Summoning, which are new monsters. Less people this issue than last, but an interesting return here. You see Nicholas Scales, of course, the editor, but Guy Duke is now the assistant editor for this first and final issue that he comes back. Graham Askey, Michael Dale, Keir Watson, Matthew Hankins, Steve Cullis, Helen Jago, who does artwork, Alan Johnson, Colin Johnson, Graham Staplehurst, who's been a contributor to a number of fanzines, Alex Self, who has the comic strip Folly which was also it says here, going to be the last time that appeared. Richard Shenfeld, as we said, has the cover, and then Matthew Eveleigh has some interior artwork as well. Here's their contents and editorial. Pretty simple stuff, just again catching up with some people who weren't given credit in earlier issues. And again, they want to mention that they're going to have the Christmas issue here for everybody. As they say, they officially announced they no longer have firm publication deadlines, which means they also don't have firm submission deadlines. So again, that's never a great sign. In the editorial, they acknowledge that this one's coming out a little bit late. They say they've changed publishers to now be Beholder Publishing Limited. Somehow that's a reason for delay. I don't 100% understand, or they don't really explain what that's supposed to mean. And of course, nothing ever happens after this, so we never really figure out what that difference was. He acknowledges Guy Duke coming back. He's excited about that. It does not appear to me that Guy Duke is responsible for the scenario here, for several reasons, not the least of which is just stylistically. It doesn't seem like something that Guy would have done. He is proud that they finally have some color on the cover, which is something new. And as he mentions, the Beholder was awarded Best Fanzine at Games Day 1981. Probably just as much credit to Guy Duke and Mike Stoner and the fanzine that they had built up over time, as in addition to what these guys have done carrying forward. They're hoping that they continue to expand both the quality of what they have and the size over time. But as you can see, this is the last issue for whatever reason. They never come back with another one. Here is the scenario for AD&D. It is Santa's Playground, or Santa's Grotto. You can see here, first thing off, like with the map, it looks like a Christmas tree. You have to find your secret way in through a chimney into Santa's workshop. You are playing 4 gnomes who used to work at the workshop and were sort of cast out, and you're sneaking back in to get your revenge. That's the concept here. My favorite part of the entire scenario is you trying to sneak to the chimney to get in, because it's surrounded by sentinel snowmen who will attack you if they see you. So that's kind of going to be a challenge just to get in there. I didn't find this to be the best adventure ever by a long shot. Maybe it would be a fun one-shot to run at Christmas time if folks are into that kind of thing. You start off by coming into the bowels or the hallway here with the reindeers drawn, and this is in fact where the reindeer are sleeping. The funky thing about this, there are candles around. If you blow them out, then you change to be like the age that you blew out. So if you blow out 2 candles, you'll be 2 years old. If you blow out 4 candles, you'll be 4 years old, etc. I guess that's supposed to be fun. Then you have the gnome's workshop, and there's people living off to the left and the right. You have to try and sneak past them. That's the big challenge here. Then you get to area 5, and this is where the dwarves live. They also are part of Santa's team. Interestingly, they do the fun stuffed toys, and you can find where they're working. You can find where they're sleeping. You can find a closet full of stuffed toys that they've made that haven't been delivered yet. Then you move up to the next section, and there's a gremlin that's moved in to the right-hand side, and the left-hand side has a Christmas pudding, like a black pudding, but he's a Christmas pudding. And then you get up to the sentries, and you get up to Santa's workshop. Santa's area. And then the star at the top is where it opens up into the cavern where everything's getting loaded up. And that was where I guess you would go and try to, get away. The Preacher's Pulpit has got to be one of the oddest articles I've ever seen published in a fanzine. It's written by E.N. Lightner, as if he's going to tell you some really important stuff that he's learned. So it's written sort of like it's a scientific article studying the reproduction of the dwarf race in a fantasy role-playing game. And says how they have their lungs, they breathe in so much mithril dust when they mine, and it causes problems with their abilities to reproduce as quickly as other races might. And he maybe has a solution, in addition to obviously stop mining and getting out in fresh air, which no dwarf, to my knowledge, wants to do, other than when they're adventuring. He also claims that maybe there's going to be a medical way to treat this mithril dust. So, again, I have no idea what inspired this person to write this article. I don't have any idea what inspired Nick Scales to print this article. It just seems weird to me. Not humorous, not entertaining, just bizarre. But there you go. Michael Dale is still putting out these articles on the Armorers Guild, where he gives you lots of historical information. He clearly loves researching this stuff and sharing it with other people. So this time he starts talking about the evolution of combat, how the Swiss became really famous pikemen with their formations and their military techniques and use of the pike and the halberd. Got them great prominence, and then people developed firearms, and he talks about how that changed what kind of armor people wore, and obviously the thickness and the ability to try and stop the musket ball, etc., that evolved in combat. And he keeps talking about all the other things he's going to write about, but of course this is the last issue, and so he never does. Graham Staplehurst brings us some ship plans here. We've got the safari ship, and then we've got this really funky looking thing with the balls and the connective hallways, and the yacht Nimbus here at the bottom. And then they have a traveler adventure called The Inheritance. It's kind of interesting. They say pick a character. I think they say the character with the highest charisma. But that character's brother will have died. And so you are summoned and maybe you don't know that at first, but you're summoned to the brother's homeworld. When you get there, you find out the brother's died. He's left a will, and there'll be a scenario that evolves from there as you work your way through trying to understand what he owns and other people involved who might have an interest in that property. And then a couple little maps of the area. Colin Johnson has Merlin's Pantry, which are new magic items. And this deals with a particular type of metal called furanites, or ethereal metal. The furanite is ethereal mithril. And then other metals like gold, silver, bronze can be affected by the ethereal plane. What he explains is this magic user was trying to hide his stuff on the ethereal plane. He put it there, but then the spell didn't work the way he thought it would, so he couldn't bring it back. So then he researched a second spell to help bring his stuff back, but then what he found was when he brought his metal back from the ethereal plane, it had gotten sort of corrupted or infected or imbued with properties of the ethereal plane, and so the metal would sort of like phase out over time, sort of like blink in and out, and sort of like a weird hologram, taking more and more time on the ethereal plane. Obviously, it could cause lots of problems if you try to use coins for paying for things, or weapons, which might phase out. And he talks quite a bit about how to do combat with metal that's been on the ethereal plane, because it could phase out and basically go straight through somebody, causing no damage. It could phase out and then phase in while it's passing through somebody and cause horrendous damage, because now the weapons are right in the middle of somebody's body. Or it could just be in phase and it would be a normal hit. So he's got a table here at the bottom he wants you to use for that. So it's kind of an interesting concept. I don't think players would enjoy it more than maybe once, but it could be kind of fun to do that one time. Now we have a monster competition. Here's the monster, pretty crazy looking, I like it. So one thing is to stat out that monster for any system, but probably a fantasy system, but you can stat it for any system you want. And the other thing would be to draw a new monster, which the new monster is the Wumpus, which is discussed back in a new play-by-mail game we'll talk about here in a minute. The Wumpus, which is a worm-like creature. All right. Here's our play-by-mail, it's Electric Zygote. Starts off with a play-by-mail discussion. It lists these different play-by-mail games that are going on: Traveler, RuneQuest, D&D, Far Noon, another D&D, Bellarec, and Hippowumpus. And that's the new one. So the Hippowumpus is hunting a Wumpus. And a Wumpus is a creature that digs through the earth. It's causing all kinds of trouble, or they're digging underneath this town or village. And they've hired people to go down into the caverns and hunt the Wumpus. The rumor is that it's sort of a worm-like creature. Some people think it has feet and can walk on ceilings, but whatever it is, it's definitely burrowing through the earth. And so that's the new play-by-mail game that Nicholas Scales is running. And again, that's the monster competition, is to draw the Wumpus. Then they have a review of their recent trip to Games Day 81. Colin Johnson writes that up. Apparently they tried to do the voting for favorite role-playing game, favorite fanzine, etc. on a computer. Quickly, first day, somebody kicks the cord, unplugs the computer, and of course back in those days, it doesn't auto-save, so they lost everyone who had voted, so they start again. They got all the way through. A lot of time into this, I think into the second day, it gets unplugged a second time. And so one picture here is them trying to tell Steve Jackson of Games Workshop, who put this on, that they lost the results yet again. So then they have one more time where they do voting. They said that the voting, at least in that third block of time, there was a clear winner, and they said it would seem consistent with who was winning on the second day when they had the long block of time for voting. And so they just used the third, final set of votes to declare their winners. One of the things, of course, the results is that the Beholder is favorite fanzine for the year. And so they talk about the thing. There are apparently lots of games being played, different RuneQuest, D&D, Traveler, etc., as well as lots of things for sale. And they had a booth where they were selling their fanzine as well as some others. Okay, monster summoning. We have two monsters this time. The first is the Shu Attack. And this is what this thing looks like. I like it quite a lot. The art's by Helen Jago. It is, I think, 8-legged. creature. Only the last set of hands can be used for weapons, but it can attack with 2 weapons at the same time. It is only the size of a large dog, so I'm going to say, I don't know, 3.5 feet tall, maybe 4. It has eyes that go all the way around its head, so it has 360-degree vision. However, it has no auditory organs, so it has no ears, cannot hear anything. I assume, like someone who is hearing impaired, it can feel sensations, so something big, slamming or moving the earth or whatever, it probably feels through its feet, right? But can't hear. So visually, it can see you from any direction, but it can't hear. So, for example, if you were invisible, you could definitely sneak up on it because it wouldn't hear you coming, right? And it couldn't see you. They sometimes have magic user abilities, I think up through 6th level magic user, and they usually live in hives underground, basically with several queens, up to 200 queens, and then the other 8 up to 2,000 total. So the other 1,800 would be males that would fight, defend, bring food back. They like to bring treasure back, and so they say if you get into their caves and you fight your way through all of them to the sort of core, you're going to find huge amounts of treasure that have been deposited there. I think they're pretty cool. Again, I think they're a pretty cool monster. Then we have the Kellerin, which was based on a drawing from the previous issue, and it looks like this. And these are creatures summoned from the ethereal plane. They have usually a couple of swords. They fight without penalty, and they also will initially be fully corporeal, and like armor class 7, but then over time they begin to phase it in and out as well, and that can cause their armor class to lower down to an armor class of -2. Very, very difficult to hit them and attack. I didn't mention the back up here. So these creatures, the magic users among them, have some unique spells that are kind of interesting. They have a sonic shriek, and again, remember they don't have ears, so they can't be affected, but it can damage anybody within 60 feet. They have earth flow, which causes the earth to sort of loosen up and move around more like liquid, which lets them burrow through the earth very easily. And they have bar, which it basically creates an invisible force field straight across up to 100 square feet, so they could use that to sort of like block you off so you couldn't get to them. And finally, they have a spell called Deceive, which is like confusion, but causes you just to not understand what's going on in reality. So you might think you're hitting when you're not. You might think you're not hitting when you are being damaged, and so they generally use it to confuse an opponent in combat, so they don't really know what's going on. And then finally, a weird one called Waft, which enables them to push air currents through their tunnels. Obviously, it can clear out cloud-based spells. It could also be used to move a scent towards someone or bring a scent towards them if they want to try and use their scent smell, I guess, to smell something that's going on around them. Okay, and again, we talked about these guys. Here's Fairly Grotto, and he says, oh, well, it does say in here that sunlight will turn a troll to stone, as he's reading Lord of the Rings. And they mentioned this is going to be the last time Fairly Grotto appears, and they're asking if anybody else has a cartoon they'd like to illustrate for future issues to please send that in. Here's just a funky drawing at the beginning. It says they're looking for new ideas, food for thought kind of ideas, DMs tips, tips and traps and tricks, for DMs to use. Various things like that sort of were more like the type articles that were in the original Beholder magazine. And this just looks like a ghost who's chasing this guy who's going to run into a giant troll or giant's mouth here. A new fanzine that they wanted to announce was Quasits and Quasars. I think they heard about this or learned about this at the Games Day. And so that's a pretty cool fanzine. I have not collected all those yet, so I have not done any videos on those, but hopefully I'll get that collection built out and we can talk about those. And here's some other artwork. This one doesn't have any initials on it. Looks like it's kind of some kind of I don't know what, some type of creature. This is from the Christmas module. This is just a little gnome chilling out. And this is from the Traveler adventure showing some space dudes. Back in the advertising section, I thought some things were kind of interesting. This is from Scale Designs, and it says there's going to be a new publication called Descent into the Crater. This is what Guy Duke created and ran at Games Day 1981. So that's pretty cool. And of course, that's in addition to what they already have produced, the standing stones and their hex sheets. I do not believe that Descent into the Crater was ever published as this, like a standalone adventure you could buy. They're advertising the Beholder Collection. This is the scenario collection by Guy Duke: Ring of Fire, Gorge of the Afterlife, Uggish and Grimbank, and the Dripping Chasm. He liked chasms, Guy did. Then there's an article for Standing Stones and some Chronicle miniatures. Game Center, the largest selection of games in the world. Orwell Game Designs, which had some unique products for sci-fi games. Data sheets, like player character sheets, subsector sheets, which would basically, I think, to draw out your star maps. World data sheets to draw out your hexes of a world you're on, and then event and animal encounter record sheets to detail your encounters and take notes about anything creatures that you meet when you're adventuring. Then Flying Buffalo, who produces Tunnels and Trolls, among a number of other things, and here they have some of their stuff for sale. And then as Devium Games, which has been advertising in the New Beholder every issue from the very beginning. So that's our look at the New Beholder number 29. That concludes our look at the New Beholder and all the Beholders. We've covered all their products now, which are fantastic. That took us quite a number of weeks. So next time we will start a brand new fanzine. I'm looking forward to that. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope you're enjoying our channel, and I hope you're subscribed. If you have friends who might enjoy our content, please encourage them to be subscribers as well. We're trying to build out our community. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. And until next time, my friends, keep rolling 20s.